Welcome back, everyone, to a brand new season of the podcast. If you've been with us for a while and you've actually listened to the previous two seasons, then you'll notice this season is a little different. And we promised that towards the end of season two. We're playing with the format, we're adding some recurring segments and giving Dan and Gail more space to kind of riff and, bring their
Because clearly we're not riffing enough.
Well, and I was going to say, and the added bonus is we get to see Michael on the YouTube. So,
Yeah,
for those of you watching, there's Michael, our intrepid host.
I would love to hear from people. Does Michael look like you thought he looked?
Ooh,
That's it. No, I remember this from my
loaded, Dan.
childhood. The DJ I'd been listening to as a teenager. When I actually saw him in person one time, I was like, oh, that doesn't look like the Uncle Johnny I thought I imagined in my head.
Oh, you want to know where your brain gets messed up is when you listen to Benjamin Percy, the author, and then you see Benjamin Percy in person. Like, this man has just an amazingly deep, silky voice. And you see him and you're like, that's what I pictured.
He does
He's a lovely man, both in person and from an audio standpoint. It's not what my brain.
So, let us know what you think of Michael. No, that's not a nice thing to say. Michael, make that. Delete that.
I will say, if you've never heard Benjamin Percy before, the introduction to him should be to watch his Halloween rendition of Goodnight Moon, because it is like demonic sounding. It's hilarious. So.
Frantically
Googling. All right.
Okay. I think we should put that in the show notes. But please, Michael,
agree.
Continue.
Link
We've
in the show
interrupted
notes.
enough.
So I still promise we'll have the same heart of the show that you've come to expect, thoughtful psychology, honest conversation, sense of humor, some comedic asides, that kind of thing. But in this way, my hope is we'll be able to hit a wider range of topics and, mix it up a bit. So
keep in mind, this is infotainment.
Infotainment.
Isn't that a great term?
It is.
It's perfect. It's informative, but hopefully funny. And,
for your not a substitute for therapy.
Yes, as our credits say. And yes, our mailbag is open. Dan already alluded to that earlier, but if you have thoughts, reactions, ideas, segments you like, ones you hate, whatever, if you want to submit your own question to us, those are all fair game. Please send that to us, especially as we kind of shape this new season. So, last thing I'll add before I actually introduce the people that you probably came to listen to, and that is for any of the folks who really liked our little bonus content after the credits, good news is it's still there. The difference now is it's going to be more of a surprise segment. I mean, it did always vary week to week anyway, but this time we'll have things like Confessions from the Couch or Research Roundup, or I don't know, something else we'll come up with. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let me bring in the experts who make all this possible. These two fantastic psychologists from Veritas Psychology Partners. We have Dr. Gail McBride and Dr. Daniel Kessler. Gail, Dan, welcome back. We've already been chatting, but maybe you should do intros for yourselves. Tell the people who you are if this is their first episode.
Well, thanks, Michael. Hi, I'm Dr. Gail McBride. I am a clinical psychologist with about 20 years experience. I do a lot of work these days with women, but not exclusively. And I always tell people, my work is around the things that keep you up at night, starting with insomnia, anxiety, relationship issues, work concerns, those things where you can't just quite slow down your mind at night. Come to me.
And I'm Dan Kessler. I'm also a clinical psychologist, like my business partner, Gail McBride. I've been practicing for about 30 years because I'm really old. And my clients are primarily men and couples dealing with relationship issues. I do a fair bit of work with sleep and insomnia as well. If we get to some research roundup later today, I may have a comment about couples and intimacy.
Awesome. Yeah, Dan has this thing attached to his name that I always forget. I always think it's BDSM, but it's not that. It's
I never quite noticed that DBSM and BDSM were so close in letter.
Oh, really?
I've never
Wow,
noticed
I'm
that.
disappointed in you, Dan. I'm
I have,
just going to say right
I have,
now, I'm
so
very disappointed the 12-year-old in you did not notice that.
I did not notice that. So DBSM is a diplomat in behavioral sleep medicine, which means that I have special advanced training in treating sleep and other insomnia and other sleep issues. BDSM is an entirely different thing that I don't believe there is a certification in, and
Well, you can become a sex therapist and then you're pretty well versed in the practices.
sure, but
But
I'm
but
not.
I really think that's a
I'm
totally different
well.
show.
Well, I how did I miss that? I'm actually quite disappointed in myself for not noticing that for the 12 years I've had the DBSM or 10 years I've had the DBSM. So I I'm embarrassed.
That's all right. Well, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help out. But with all the intros out of the way, we'll move on to our first segment. For the last 2 seasons, we spent a lot of time with the Am I the Asshole format. We enjoyed that, and it's not going away, but we're introducing other similar kind of conversations. We're starting with this one, which I'm calling You're Not Crazy, but...
And I didn't know
By
this
the
was coming,
way,
so
this is a complete surprise to us. We have
yes.
no idea what's coming.
Well,
All
the
right,
way I kind of imagine this is like,
let's
I
hear
think
it.
we all have behaviors that we think are normal until somebody provides an alternative perspective. Often that's, a partner, who is around you long enough and feels comfortable enough to be like, yeah, that's not how normal people think. So anyway, I figured I would take this opportunity to ask, is this normal? And then Gail and Dan can kind of help us figure out what's human and what might just be your nervous system working
Just
overtime. So
right off the bat, I will tell you that I tend to try to never use the word normal. I tend to use the word normative
And I
because
will just simply tell you, normal's a setting on the dryer. So
yeah.
we're going to have a really big bandwidth for, yes, that's normative. But
Right.
try us, Michael.
All right, let's hear it.
all right, so this is the first scenario I got for you. I keep rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet. I'll be in the shower arguing with my
Normal.
boss.
Yeah, normal. Is this
It
like a
happens to
speed
everybody.
round?
We do it all the time.
Yeah, is this a speed round?
I mean, you could say more, but the reality is we
Yeah.
all have those conversations. And in fact, once I heard it sort of made akin to a normative experience that most people engage in, that would be maybe even on a slider, the kind of experience that someone who hears voices might have when they have a conversation.
Hmm.
That in fact the voices are existing in your head, you're taking on both parts, you're having an active conversation, especially when you're really keyed up, you're driving home and after a fight with your whoever, and you're like you're like
You're
really
fighting with
into
your
it, that
whoever.
there may be some like, again, a slider experience. It's not actually hearing the voices, but again, there's that thought pattern that's happening in your head, and you're engaging in that and you're responding to it.
Gosh,
Not
I,
terribly dissimilar to someone who's hearing a voice and responding.
it is normative, and I will say that like I certainly do that myself in the car. I will freely admit to like muting the music or podcast I'm listening to and like holding forth and giving a speech or having a conversation and like if you pull up alongside me, I may be talking on the phone, but I may just be talking to myself. So
Yeah.
I hope, gosh, I really hope that's normative because it's something I do all the time. So
I mean,
was there more to this, Michael, or did we just like cut the scenario off at the knees?
there's a little bit more, but it's okay.
Okay.
And
Tell us.
Dan, thank God for like the frequency and abundance of like, being able to talk in your car on the phone, because you're right. I mean, it looks normal now. In the 80s, if you saw somebody doing that, you'd be like, "Oh my God, what is going on over there?"
that's
So,
true.
all right,
That's true.
so all right, you guys addressed that part, right? Like the talking through an argument in your head. There's also replaying, where you run back a conversation, right? And you're working through that, whether you're like thinking about a funny comment you made or how you spiraled for a couple of days about saying something and whether it sounded unprofessional or not. And then
Mm.
ultimately, kind of the question is like, is this anxiety? Is this perfectionism? Is this people pleasing? Is this hypervigilance? You know, what is kind of
Yes.
driving those
Yeah.
things?
Yes,
Yeah.
the answer is that all of those things. It's that intersection, I think. Dan, you said yes right away too. Like what do you think is the biggest driver here?
I think it depends. I think it depends on the individual. I it just it's such a ubiquitous thing to kind of go through things in our heads and to say or to say them out loud. When we're in private spaces. It's fine. It's I I really don't have any more. I think the answer to that is yes.
Yeah,
All of the above.
I think there's a point where it can become debilitating and problematic, and we certainly see and have those conversations with people in our office where, they are spending a large amount of time. And I think that's where that normative conversation, yes, that's normative, but again, how much of the thing that you're doing is taking up of your day then maybe becomes,
Right.
fodder for treatment.
Are you using it to process feelings, cope with them better, deal with the emotion of the moment? Maybe in the case of an argument, pick apart the parts of it that were problematic for you? Or is this rumination? Is this going over and over and over again,
Right.
the same thing, and amping yourself up further or getting angrier at the person you had the argument with rather than working it through? And I think that's a really good point that
Right.
it can be really used for good in processing, or it can be used for maybe things that are less healthy through rumination.
Right. And so rumination being this process of that feels more stuck. I'm not actually going anywhere. I'm just kind of chewing over and over and over and over it again, as opposed to really a growth orientation, which is what did I do? Was that, really my best self? Do I have something to learn here? Something I could change or do differently? And then what do I do? If the answer is yes, I should have done it differently. Am I beating myself up for that and really becoming very hard on myself?
Hmm.
Which again may be the stuck point in rumination, or you go, yep, okay, well, flub that one, and I'm gonna do it differently next time.
Right.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting is that this is probably like that Alex Falcone segment of "Is it a scam? Yep." It should be "Is this normal? Yep."
Yeah.
And that was sort of what I heard in terms of the pacing in my head for sure.
Well,
Link
thank
in
you.
the
I
show
mean,
notes to
sometimes,
something from Alex Falcone because hilarious and so on point.
yeah. I mean, I think sometimes these little gut checks are helpful, though. You don't know. I think the benchmark. It's hard to know what that is, unless you ask. So, but
Well, and I think again to our earlier point, and I want to emphasize this, is a lot of these behaviors are going to be normative in some amount. Is it normal for me to check the lock on my door?
Yes.
Yes. Is it normative to check it 3 times, 7 times, 15 times? Probably not, right? There is a line, and that line is sometimes a little blurry, but we
Hmm.
know that if you start spending excessive amounts of time during the day to the exclusion of other important roles and tasks in your life, that becomes the place where we want you in. We need to do some treatment. So I think of this as making your world bigger, right? These kinds of things often make your world smaller. And so our job is to make is to make your life more fulfilling and more well-rounded, not stuck on any one of these given things.
great. Well, thanks for the gut check there. I don't know if this will be a reoccurring segment, but maybe, who knows? A little dose of like, yes, it's normal, probably doesn't hurt. So,
Yeah.
A lot of folks don't realize is how closely anxiety is tied to success. That
Mhm.
mild to moderate anxiety is really correlated with super high levels of success. Unfortunately, sometimes folks with anxiety are on that knife edge. Those really high performing, high achieving folks are on the edge of it. And then with life stresses and things, they cross that line. And now it's no longer productive anxiety, but the anxiety is like over the top and interfering with life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's no longer just about being prepared and marshaling the resources for any given disaster eventuality. You're fatiguing your nervous system. You are on the brink of burnout. Yeah, your nervous system just can't take that and frankly, it's not a 40-hour a week job. It's often, right, it's often 50 or 60 hours that we have keyed our nervous system to just on. That's not
Yeah,
workable.
and a lot of these folks are like, you know, the perception of self, accurately so, is I just I can do anything. I can do everything. Look at what I've done. And it's not like an arrogant look at what I've done. Not at all. It's more like a uh, um, I've done all of this. I can't possibly need help, and I just
Well,
need to muscle through it, or just deal with it. Um,
yeah, well, I think it lends itself to one of the favorite things I like telling people, which is your greatest strength is also your greatest weakness.
yeah.
This is what got you here. It will also be your undoing. So if you feel like you're on that knife's edge, I want you to reach out to us at veritaspp.com. We've got a link in the show notes.
Yeah. By we're not looking to take away anxiety. We're often looking to just bring it down back into that highly productive range so that it helps you and doesn't hurt you anymore.
All right, for a change of pace, I thought we would actually return to the thing we started with, which is
Ooh,
an "Am I the asshole?" post I found. Are you guys up
Ooh.
for that? Or maybe you're
Yeah,
out of practice? I don't
absolutely.
know.
Back to
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
OG.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the title I have today, which is "Am I the asshole for telling my wife she can't quit her job because I don't want to be the sole breadwinner?"
Um, I think I need more context. We like to
Yeah.
often jump to an absolute judge a book by its cover conclusion, and maybe we're a little rusty because this season we haven't been doing as many of these, but I
I,
really feel like I just want more, Michael.
I do as
Yeah.
well. Please.
So same-sex couples, early 30s, just to kind of give you the background. So the OP says, my wife recently told me she wants to quit her job once the baby arrives because she's completely burned out and wants time to figure things out. We've been married 5 years, and when we got married, she insisted on buying a large farmhouse, two dogs.
I'm going to interrupt you right now. Just I got the language used here already. When we did got whatever, she insisted we buy.
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
not there.
This
There's
partner is
something,
blaming the other partner.
and there's already like some loaded tension, sort of like I like, and I'm interrupting you because that's something that in therapy I'm going to file away. I'm not going to interrupt my client necessarily, but I want to hear that coming up. Like you have a feeling about your partner um doing something here, and I'm
Yes.
just
And,
filing
and
that
in
away.
your attempt to be neutral to describe it, that emotion is leaking.
It's leaking. Yes, there's some leakage here. All right, continue, Michael.
Gotcha. So buying a large farmhouse, two dogs, and three horses. Knowing full well I'd be supporting our household on my income. Since then, she reduced to part time work, and I took on a second job, plus almost all home, yard, and animal care responsibilities. Now she wants to cut her hours entirely, and she's expecting me to pick everything up without adjusting our lifestyle. When she brought it up, I immediately told her quitting isn't possible. I'm already stretched to the brink, balancing two jobs, childcare, cooking, cleaning, lawn work, horse care, house maintenance, and still going without rest. I feel like I'm drowning, yet if she quits, everything we chose together becomes entirely mine to maintain. So, am I the asshole for telling my wife she can't quit her job under these circumstances?
This is packed. This is really, I almost feel like we have to go through this piece by piece. I'm sorry, Michael. Were you going to say more about this before I?
No, I was gonna. I can't. I didn't think about the wording until you immediately called that out, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so loaded. Like every one of these things feels like a calculated word choice that is leaking, to your point. So,
I don't know that it's calculated. I actually think it's revealing,
Yeah,
and maybe in a way that the poster isn't intending to reveal.
right, right. There are feelings here
Mhm.
that are really clearly have been building up for some period of time.
But
Um,
ambivalence as well, because in the latter part of the post, the poster is saying that these are things that we chose, but initially she's loading it as her wife chose.
sure, sure, and
So,
it's. I mean, the question really isn't. I don't like this the way the question's phrased, which is, "Am I the asshole for telling her she can't work?" You're not telling your partner she can't quit her job. You're saying, "I don't. I want to be with a partner who is being supportive." and participating. And it would not be acceptable to me to be in a relationship with someone who wasn't an equal partner, or at least to some degree a partner in many of these tasks. And that is unpalatable to me.
Right. And to your point, like in the description as Michael read it, she says this is the question, but it's not really what she said. It's been flipped onto her and given
Hmm.
her, ascribed to her in this way that she doesn't feel comfortable with, which I think is interesting. But I think, as I was listening to this doesn't even feel like an argument that I told my partner they can't quit. What this is a disagreement about the distribution of the tasks and responsibilities of this shared household.
Right.
And it sounds like that's made up of bills, mortgage, etc., animal care, human care. We have a little human in the mix here, and household, well, and I guess household tasks, right? So there's just simply the finances that make all of those things run, and then the tasks that make those things run. And how we achieve that doesn't isn't prescribed. I mean, we can certainly do this on a single income unless that single income earner says, no, this is too much. Historically,
Right.
we know that many households were built on the back of a single income earner being that person that had two jobs and one person at home who did animal care and grocery shopping and meal prepping and child
Hmm.
rearing and soccer running and whatever else that they did. And that was acceptable. And
Hmm.
many times now we have just decided that's not acceptable. We want two incomes because it's more efficient and, quite frankly, does a better job of covering us in these economic times. I don't think that this is what we used to do is really necessarily reflective of the current economy and
Right.
ability to afford. So this is where I think, we've created this
Right.
shift. And now we have this partner who's really struggling with resentment, and she is not doing a really great job of saying, I feel resentful. And I think then I go back to Brene Brown, which is resentment isn't about anger, right? And she takes this from her conversation with Mark Brackett. So just sort of that idea of attribution matters. Mark Brackett would say resentment is not part of the anger family. It's part of envy. Oh, holy shit, I'm not
Hmm.
mad that you're resting. I'm pissed that I am exhausted and I don't think I can stop. I
Yeah.
can't give myself that time to rest. And I think that's what this is leaking through in this woman's
Hmm.
post.
Yeah, and what she's saying is that I don't feel like I have a partner who is pulling their weight essentially. I have a partner who is not, and I think that the a more direct language would have been better than some of the leakage kind of
Yes.
language of I feel like my partner is making decisions that impact me, um that feel unilateral, and are uncomfortable. And I get to retire whenever I want to retire. My decision. However, I don't get to make decisions that impact my partner without consulting my partner. So while my partner may not have the right to say you can't retire, my partner does have the right to say I want to be in a relationship with someone who is providing for the family, who is meeting the needs of the family, who is working together. So this is a conversation about when I get to, or when this person gets to quit working or retire, whatever they're doing. It becomes a conversation about how we're then going to manage the tasks around the house. It's not unilateral. And sometimes people make the mistake of, like, that won't work for me as being a unilateral declaration. You're not allowed to do it. No, it's a conversation, and it's the opening of a conversation that doesn't sound like it's happening in this relationship.
Right. Yeah. No, I felt like the post was the rom-com startup
Yeah. Yeah.
for a couple who hasn't had the conversation. And I think this would be a really hard conversation because there is one person, the LP here, who really thinks, I believe, that some of the choices that have been made are options that feel negotiable. But I bet you if we ask her wife, those choices don't feel negotiable.
Mhm.
And I feel like this person has maybe the poster has maybe missed a number of opportunities to have conversations along the way, including the farmhouse her wife insisted on they buy and the horses they, and because I bet you if we ask her, she will feel like she didn't have a say. My wife wanted these horses, so we got horses. And it's hard because I think especially early absolutely. I mean, this couple has been married for 5 years together. We don't know how long, but very often we want to deliver that dream to our partner. And our partner says, I want this old farmhouse and I want to have a little
But
hobby farm with horses.
I,
And there's I don't know, I feel compelled to want to help my partner with their dream until I feel stressed
yeah,
over and that
here's
dream
what.
is now taking away from my day-to-day
Mhm.
ability to rest and recover.
And what
Well, their
I'm
dream
wondering
hurts me.
here is if we were talking to the partner, would she say, "Oh yeah, we bought the farm and we got the horses because I insisted and my wife agreed," or would she say, like I've talked to people in this situation and they're like, "Wait a second, we had a conversation around it. Yes, it was important to me, but after the conversation, you said yeah, I think that's a good idea, and now you're saying that I insisted on it and sort of forced it." Um, and then, oh well, that's how it felt to me. It felt like I didn't have a choice. But and this is a conversation that the couple, um, like it would be useful to have because I suspect that the wife of OP felt like it saw this entire insisting very differently.
100%. You did a really good job, I think, of echoing what that would look like in the therapy room. It's
Mhm.
exactly what I was saying, which is out of the mouth of this of OP is yes, let's do this. We've had this conversation. I agree to it. But underneath it going, yeah, this is your dream, not mine. And I'll sort of
Hmm.
go along with it and I'll go along with it. And she's not advocating for herself along the way of like, I don't think this is a really great idea. We're not really horse people, or you're a horse person and I'm kind of not. Right.
Hmm.
So I think that is where we can get a little wrapped up in wanting to create that dream for our partner and not advocate
Hmm.
our concerns clearly. Like, yeah, I'm willing to do horses, but I have some concerns about the ongoing cost of having a horse. By the way, it's really expensive.
Right, right. And these are like the question. Am I wrong? What am I the asshole for telling my wife she can't? Like,
She can't
of
quit her
course,
job. Yeah.
of course. If you say to your partner, you can't do that, you have to do it this way. Yeah, probably. But if we look at the real question here, which is, am I the asshole for wanting to have a relationship where my partner and I both contribute meaningfully, and not wanting to have a partner who's not contributing meaningfully to the relationship, whether it's financially or in some other way, and I'm wanting more? No, that's not unreasonable at all. That
Yeah.
you're not being an asshole there at all.
And I think if there's maybe, and I don't like the term asshole, but if there's asshole behavior here, it is withholding your concerns from your partner along the line where we're making several really big life decisions. You don't have to be 100% enthusiastic in favor of something to agree to go along with it. But if you hide your concerns from your partner and then wallop them with it in the course of an argument,
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Right.
Your partner shouldn't learn about a concern you had for the first time when you were hot under the collar and upset. Ideally, they know, hey, this is your dream, babe. I really want to support that. I have some reservations, but I am willing to go along with this, at this as is, right? And in order to do that and to continue to make me feel comfortable, I am really going to need XYZ. And we have that clarity. But again, those conversations are boring and they're not what rom-coms are built on.
Right. Right. And I don't think OP here, just to without jumping to the verdict too quickly, I don't think OP is an asshole. However, she's missed some opportunities to have some discussion and is clearly carrying some anger over a decision that her wife thought they made together, probably, but she's still feeling resentful over, and that would have been, and she's also feeling resentful over some of the other tasks around the house, and that resentment doesn't sound like it's been fully addressed. And I'd really want to have the two of them address that resentment and frustration. Um, I don't know. Maybe wife thinks that everything's been going smoothly.
Probably.
Maybe OP is missing some large swath of work her wife is doing. I want to kind of do a bit deeper dive into this before I call anyone an asshole. Um, but there's some conversations that need to happen here.
I'm going to go a little controversial with a callback. So, we've been doing things a little differently this season. And so Michael has been putting together some segments, and I'm actually going to call it a segment that I hope he's either aired before this or is going to join this episode. I am going to say neither partner is even sucky. They lack mens rea because we have done
Mm,
a terrible job. Mens rea, by the way, which is the ability to form intent before you do the bad thing, right? And the reason that they don't have intent is because they don't have the skills, the ability, or the awareness of how to have these intimate kinds of conversations, these vulnerable boundary setting, consent giving conversations, because we fail them when we teach about relationships and sex
mm,
and intimacy. And there's a segment that we did about, and it's a research roundup segment talking about satisfaction, about and how adults feel satisfied in their relationship in terms of their ability to communicate about these things. And part of what we're finding is that our system underserves our skill development and
mm.
skill building. And so people are getting into relationships and they don't have the skills to have these conversations, which is
Yeah.
why they come to therapy, right? So I'm going to say they lack mens rea because of that lack of skill. See that segment of our podcast. Nobody sucks here.
Right. I'm open to that. I think that it's worthwhile to for each of these people to sit down and share what they're feeling, share what they're thinking, and try to work together to get both of their needs met.
Mhm.
OP clearly has a greater need for someone to for her wife to step up and do a few other tasks and get involved and take some of the load off of her. OP's wife clearly is feeling overwhelmed as well with work and things and wants to change her life a bit. And this is a conversation for the two of them to have. How do we resolve this? Like, how do we get
And
both of our needs met?
for sure. And you touch on something that's super important that we didn't spend any time talking about. Burnout is
Hmm.
real.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
really and truly, the only way through burnout is then rest and examining the pattern that got you there in the first place. Very
Mhm.
often, we have unhealthy belief systems that support our continued involvement in a system that is overburdening and overworking us. And we finally wake up one day and go, I cannot continue to do this. And I can't continue to do that in going forward in the future. What does my future look like? That's the way
Right.
through burnout. And this woman is identifying she's there, and that's real. It's critical and it must be treated.
Yeah. All right. So we're going with there aren't
Assholes.
assholes here, at least as far as we know. It might be that when they like a deeper dive might find out that, oh yeah,
Of
one
course.
of you
Oh,
is a total asshole.
maybe. Michael,
But
what if
right
the
now
internet? Yeah.
I'm entering into this saying no assholes here.
So
Yeah.
if you had to hazard a guess, where do you think the internet came down?
Oh, you're the asshole. Absolutely. You can't demand that your wife
No,
not quit her
I think
job. I
I think
think.
it's the other way around. I
Oh,
think the
really?
internet's going to say, what the fuck? Why isn't your wife participating as an equal partner? Why is she expecting that you to do everything? So when the
Or some
internet's
of
like,
both, a
Michael,
nice 50-50 split.
I love it. Yeah, it's overwhelmingly you're not the asshole. She can't quit and still insist on horses and a house and land and dog care. You'll literally die from burnout. And being the sole worker is exhausting. Like you need to stand up for yourself, and she can't do that. Now, in the thread, people did say you're kind of you clearly have a chip on your shoulder. You need to have conversations. You need to
mhm,
work through this, right? But it was interesting. I don't think there was a single post that said like you're an asshole here. Like the language you're using, like clearly it's loaded. There were a couple people who said everybody sucks here, but really for the most part, it was
Mhm.
not the asshole. So
And I think, this is exactly why we need to be careful about where we get information, because the way we couch it, the way we frame it, we can often pull for a very agreeable response. And whether that is from people on the internet or a generative LLM, large language model type of program, it tends to be fairly agreeable. And then we double down, which can be very destructive. I want to make this pitch that if you're in a place like this, having a therapist who can help you really tease that apart and listen to the nuance and listen to the nonverbal intonation and meaning and all of that is really important. Don't just take it, don't take advice just straight from the internet. I mean, it's good fodder for us, but like,
it is. It is. You're right.
a little
Absolutely.
concerned.
Right.
there were kind of three other conversations I'll just mention that were kind of funny. I mean, one was there was this running theme that people kept saying champagne tastes on a beer budget
Hmm.
sums up this dynamic. Like, she has unrealistic expectations or wants all that stuff, and you can't afford it on the budget you have. Another one really hyper focused on the horses. They're like, three horses? Are you kidding me? Like three horses. That's a lot of horses. Yeah, one horse doesn't do great on their own. They need a partner. Totally get that. But a third horse? Like really? Sell that horse and hire a stable hand to take care of the other two,
Yeah,
and you'll
that'll
be
help.
so
Let's get an employee in that situation. Oh, Jesus.
yeah. And then helpfully, there were a number of people who suggested couples therapy or shared budgeting tools so that there was transparency about like where the money went and what you could actually afford and those kind of things and shared spreadsheets and that kind of stuff. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah. But thanks again for helping shed some light on who's the asshole or no asshole here. Um,
Hmm.
really appreciate it. It was kind of fun to return that old segment. We'll do that periodically through the new season. But I figured it was time to bring one of those in.
Hey, Gail, have you noticed this? We get, it seems like I get a lot of couples who say, we're not in crisis, but something feels off with us.
Right? I mean, we don't have to be like throwing plates and, absolutely ready to sign the divorce papers. Honestly, it's a really good idea to come in before these kinds of problems accumulate, just to learn to communicate and connect a little better.
Yeah, I think couples are sometimes afraid of saying we're entering couples therapy or we're beginning couples therapy because somehow couples therapy or doing couples therapy means our relationship is completely in the shit and is about to fall apart. And we work a lot with folks who are more in the things aren't where they need to be or we'd like them to be. We've gotten a bit static in our relationship and don't have the connection we had before. Um, and it's usually just because life is interfering and they've maybe deprioritized their relationship or just aren't communicating well anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And frankly, that's the best time to intervene is when things have gotten just a little bit sideways and not completely upside down. Investing early is really the best type of preventative care for probably the most important relationship in your life, or one of
Yeah.
them.
And we're happy to chat with folks. And sometimes people want to know, like, we're not sure if we need help. And, sometimes it's no, you know what, you are fine. And sometimes it's, yeah, here's what we could tweak a little bit, but this isn't like years of therapy. This is a few visits or a smaller number of visits to kind of tighten things up. There's all sorts of information about how to connect with us at our website, veritaspp.com, and there's a link in the show notes, but it's veritaspp.com.
Hey, Dan, we are seeing just a plethora, it's one of my favorite words,
That's
of
all right.
research and discussion around AI and the therapy space, right? This is coming from places of state legislation and even just in research. What are we doing with AI in the mental health space? There's an article here that we're going to talk about, and we can link it in the show notes, but tell us a little bit about the article you found.
I have been really deeply troubled by, and I think that what's really important here is we call it AI, but really what we're talking about is a computer algorithm generating responses. There is not intelligence underneath this. And there are computer algorithms that generate responses based on what those algorithms have been programmed to respond with. And the biggest issue we're seeing with this in the therapy space is that people are utilizing these computer generated algorithms to produce something that mimics psychotherapy. And the reason this article is so fascinating, and it's not directly related to what so-called AI therapy at all, it's really about how many mistakes are made by AIs. And what they found is when you ask AI, these large language models is better, probably a better way of saying it, these large language models about psychological research, about 1 in 5 of the research articles that they cite are not existent. They're not even they're completely made up out of whole cloth. They're not even misinterpretations of articles or incorrectly cited articles. They are just articles that do not actually exist, that they have
And
created.
and we know that these large language models so-called hallucinate, right? They make up data. But boy, this is going to be a really hard piece of data to ferret out and find that it's been made up and correct. Like I think they're
Yeah.
doing a better job of like correcting some of the hallucinations, but boy, this is going to be a tough one to recognize as a hallucination.
Sure. And even where they're when they're not made up out of whole cloth, and the 80% of the time that they're actually research articles, about two-thirds of the time they read them wrong, or they misinterpret things, or they don't.
Mhm.
So you take these large language models, these computer algorithms, and then people start talking to them as if it's a therapist and getting responses that sound like therapist responses, but may be wildly inaccurate, really incorrect, or have some sort of bias. One of the things you may have noticed if you ask some of these so-called AIs questions, they will often sort of lean into what you've said and like agree with you. That may be a terrible thing in psychotherapy. It may get you using their system more, in psychotherapy isn't likely to be beneficial.
Well,
And
unfortunately, I mean, we've seen some really tragic cases where your point exactly, where it's leaned in and has provided really dangerous guidance.
right. So I'm looking forward to states passing laws that are going to really tighten up on the use of AI, or so-called AI in psychotherapy. Um, is I want to say it's Illinois,
It is,
has
yeah.
okay. Illinois has banned it entirely, and I think we're going to see a lot of state legislatures taking up some legislation over this to really try to protect people,
Yeah.
from some of the problems that we're seeing here. And I think this research article, that we've linked, really speaks to how often these things get it wrong. If you were using voice dictation that got things wrong, made things up 20% of the time, if you were using a car that drove itself and it did something wrong 1 out of every 5 decisions, like that's insanely unhelpful. And imagine a therapy algorithm that made things up 20% of the time. That's going to really, really potentially screw people up. So
Yeah.
I'm very worried about this.
I think I've been glad this week to hear our own local professional organization taking this on and creating some advocacy here in Minnesota. I'm hoping that it's looking a little bit more like what they've done in Illinois. And then, I wanted to piggyback on that decision-making model. I think it's tempting to think as a therapist, oh, I'll just find where the incorrect information is and I'll be able to sort it out because I'm a therapist and I'm trained. But what we're really saying is the underpinnings, the foundational research that you may be trying to make clinical decisions on, it could be flawed 20% of the time, and that's problematic. And the reality is, most of us therapists are not looking up questions about depression and anxiety. We probably have that really well nailed. We may be
Mm.
looking up things that are a little bit outside of our scope of competency or something that we're interested in developing. And that's where the numbers go down from there. So if we say 1 in 5 have errors, you start looking up something that's a little just but adjacent to your scope of competency because
Mm.
you want to research it and you think, oh, I found it, and here's the data to back it up and the articles look good. All of a sudden you're working on even worse data, even
Right,
more
right.
flawed information, and so that's problematic. And so this is not just a warning for consumers, the lay public turning to large language models to absorb this information and utilize it, but also to therapists. We'd like to think we know better and
Hmm.
we can be just as easily duped.
Right. The bottom line is, large language models not ready to be therapists. And if you're a therapist, or you're a person looking for information about mental health, and you're utilizing one of these so-called AIs to that, double check those research articles before you rely on them, because they may be inaccurate, or inaccurately interpreted, or they may not exist at all.
You can follow Dr. Dan Kessler at Dr. Dan Kessler and Dr. Gail McBride at Dr. G. McBride. Oh, and you can find them both at veritaspp.com. We love hearing from you, so please review us on Apple, Spotify, or, well, wherever you're listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please review, like, and follow. Also, give it a share. This helps us reach more listeners. Credits. Tickling the Ivories, Matthew Reddington. Art, production, and design, bringing this show together with flair and finesse, Michelle Love. Recording and editing, turning chaos into something worth sharing, Michael McBride. Intro, outro, I'm Kelly Buttrick, a VO talent who just happens to be Dr. McBride's cousin. Cats, CJ, Linus, Sadie, and Griffin. Hosting by whomever lost the coin flip. Interruptions by all their children. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listening to this podcast does not constitute a therapist-client relationship. If you believe you may be experiencing a mental health issue, please seek the assistance of a qualified mental health professional. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text 988 from anywhere in the U.S. to be connected to Crisis Mental Health Services.